all. I am Adit Krishna from the 5th class of Mudutala AAP School. India is celebrating the 74th Independence Day on 15th August 2020. On this occasion, I would like to deliver a short speech about the importance of Salt Satyagraha in the Indian freedom movement. Since the 17th century, India had been under the British domination. India had been struggling for freedom for years, including the revolt of 1857, but was suppressed by the British. Among the various freedom movements, the one considered the best was the Salt Satyagraha, otherwise known as Civil Disobedience Movement. The Salt Satyagraha was an active civil disobedience movement led by Mahatma Gandhi in 1930 to protest the Britain Salt Act of 1882, which prohibited the Indians from collecting or selling salt. On 12th March 1930, Mahatma Gandhi, along with his 78 followers, and set out from Sabarmati Ashram and travelled around 240 miles on foot to the coastal town of Dandi in Gujarat. When the march reached Dandi in 5th April, there were about 10,000 of people joined in the Satyagraha march. Mahatma Gandhi was arrested on 5th May, but the Satyagraha continued even in his absence. In Gujarat, the movement was headed by Abbas Tyabji and Sarojini Naidu. Bihar Gandhi, Dr. Rajendra Prasad headed the movement in Bihar. Vedhar Gandhi Sivijachako Balachari headed the movement in Tamil Nadu, and Kerala Gandhi K. Kelapan and Payunu in Kerala. The movement was supported by various leaders all over India and thus entered the British in trouble. The British were forced to release Mahatma Gandhi from prison. Mahatma Gandhi agreed Lord Irving to call off Satyagraha in exchange for an equal negotiating role at London Conference on India's future. In August 1931, Mahatma Gandhi represented the Indian National Congress in Second Roundtable Conference held in London. The Salt Satyagraha was a significant step to make the British realize that their control over India depended entirely on the consent of the Indians. Later, on 15th August 1947, the sweetest moment in the Indian history happened. The British were forced to declare India an independent country. National Salt Satyagraha Memorial was opened at Dandi in Gujarat on 30th January in 2019. I express my sincere respect to all the freedom fighters on this occasion and wish you all a happy Independence Day. Thank you.
A spectacular good morning to all. I deem it a privilege to express my utmost respects to my nation on this Independence Day. Happy Independence Day. You must be the change what you wish to see in the world. These are the innovative words of the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, during the Salt March. Let us see how Mahatma Gandhi showed us these words in his actions. Starting in 1835, when provinces in India increasingly came under the British rule, the British imposed a tax on Indian salt and a series of salt laws. The tax raised the price of Indian salt and made it difficult for Indians, especially poor people, to buy the salt they needed. The salt laws made it illegal for people to collect, produce, or sell salt. Anyone who produced or sold salt in India outside of British could be imprisoned for 6 months. Mahatma Gandhi and many others found the imposition of the salt tax and the restrictions in the salt production unfair and decided to protest against them. He said, "Next to air and water, salt is perhaps the greatest necessity of life. Salt is important because it makes our food taste good. But more importantly, salt is essential for our health." Mahatma Gandhi organized a salt march from the Gandhi Ashram in Ahmedabad to the seaside village of Dandi in the south of Gujarat. It started on 12th of March 1930 with Mahatma Gandhi and 78 people. We know them as freedom fighters because they not only struggled against unfair laws but for Indian freedom against the British rule. Along the 240 miles from Ahmedabad to Dandi, thousands of people from all over India joined the march to protest the British rule, the high salt taxes, and the unfairness of not being allowed to collect, produce, or sell their own salt. Mahatma Gandhi and his followers walked 12 miles a day and reached Dandi in 3 weeks. At the end of the march, Mahatma Gandhi picked up some grains of salt from the seashore and took a pledge. With these crystals of salt, I am going to break the foundation of the British Empire. With the Dandi March, Mahatma Gandhi launched the civil disobedience movement against the British Empire. Along with Mahatma Gandhi, 80,000 people were arrested. But the British administration eventually relented and invited Mahatma Gandhi to London to discuss reforms in India. Mahatma Gandhi's Salt March got wide news coverage and proved to be a turning point in the history of the independence movement of India, and that led to independence in 1947. He showed that with a simple act of just standing up the injustice, he just shook the foundation of the British Empire, as said. He showed us that by working together, people of convict and courage, even if one is as small and powerless as a grains of salt, can make an enormous difference. I hope you all understood how the sweetness of independent India came from salt. Thank you.
Respected teachers, parents and all my dear friends, a very good morning to all. As you know, today is our 75th Independence Day. Today I am standing before you to tell a few words on the history behind the freedom struggle. And we have gathered here to celebrate this great national event. As we all know that Independence Day is an auspicious occasion for all us. India's independence is the most important to all the Indian citizens and has been mentioned forever in the history. It is the day when we got freedom from the British rule after many years of hard struggle by the great freedom fighters of India. Indian soldier Mangal Pandey in the British force had first raised his voice against Britishers for the independence of India. Later, several great freedom fighters had struggled the span their whole life only for getting freedom. We can never forget the sacrifices of the Bhagat Singh, Gandhiram Bose and Chandrasekhar Azad, who had lost their lives in their early age just for fighting for their country. How can we ignore all the struggles of Netaji and Gandhiji? Gandhiji was a great Indian personality who taught India a big lesson of non-violence. He was the one and only who led India to get freedom with the help of non-violence. Finally, the result of long years of struggles came in front on 15th of August 1947 when India got freedom. We are so lucky that our forefathers have given us the land of peace and happy, where we can sleep all night without fear and enjoy all day in our school or home. Today is a very significant day for all Indians, which we celebrate, remember, in sacrifices of great Indian leaders who who had given their lives for the freedom and prosperity of the country. Some of the great freedom fighters of India are Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, Lal Bahadur Shastri, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Subhash Chandra Bose, Dadabhai Naroji, Rajendra Prasad, etc. They were famous patriots who struggled hard for the freedom of India till the end of their life. We cannot imagine that horrible moment struggled by our forefathers when I am thinking about our freedom fighters and their struggles, tears coming through my eyes. Today, our country, a well-established, democratic country all over the world. Gandhiji dreamed of an independence India with the non-violence and peace. India is our mother country and we are its citizens. We should always be ready to save it from the bad people.